Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Every day is a dawn of a new hope, and we are happy again to have you watching the program Viewpoint on Dbs television every day at 7 p.m. But then today we are going to be discussing many issues, and our guest for tonight is Mr. Kang Gogomos. He is a legal mind practitioner. Good evening to you, Mr. Kang, and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much, madam. It's my pleasure being here another day.
Manga Venashus, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Vanessa, and good evening to our viewers this last day of the week.
The program is divided into two parts. The first part that has to do with the yes or no questions and answers, and the second part has to do with the debate. But for the moment, let us have part number one. All right, the game has just begun. Question number one is promoting students or pupils based on the two terms a possible solution to the health crisis we are facing. I begin with you, Mr. Kang. Yes or no?
No.
No. Manga Venashus, what do you think about that?
I think that it is yes, Vanessa.
Yes. Question number two. Is it possible to use the remaining academic year to catch up with time lost? Mr. Kang, what do you think about that?
Yes.
Yes, Manga Venashus?
I'm thinking the contrary. I think no.
No. The third question for today. Is there anything wrong in talking about the Anglophone crisis in classrooms with case study, the University of Boya? I begin with you, Manga Venashus. Yes or no?
Nothing. There's nothing wrong.
Nothing wrong. So it's a no.
Yes.
Mr. Kang, what do you say about that?
I said no. There is absolutely nothing wrong.
Okay. And our last question, is there anything behind the MRC's resistance to stop distributing anti-COVID-19 gifts? Yes or no? I begin with you, Manga Venashus.
Yes, Vanessa, I think there's something wrong.
There's something wrong. All right, Mr. Kang?
Yes, I think there is something wrong.
This is their point of view, and what is yours back at home? Just stay tuned for the debate. We'll be right up in a moment. In our first question, we asked whether promoting students or pupils based on the two terms a possible solution to the health crisis we are facing. We are talking about the coronavirus. Mr. Kangi said, no, it is not a solution to this health crisis. Why do you think it's not going to help them this academic year as a solution?
Madam, thank you so much. When we look at the health situation in our country presently, the suspension of the last term of the academic year, presumably, as per the government being a solution to the health crisis, really irks some of us who perchance are also interwoven with the academic sector. It is true that some of the measures put in place are social distancing, washing hands with soap, using sanitizers and others, people not gathering in groups like in schools, churches, and so on. But it will really take an extraordinary force to bring to mind that I should warmly accept the fact that the government, the administrators that be, will sit and decide that bars should open. When people gather, when they take alcohol, it intoxicates them. They can embrace and do everything. They open bars and allow churches and schools. It does not really bring to mind any ideological difference. I really think that the opportunity given to bars would have been given to churches, given to schools, where we know they are social entities, which of course can supplement, like the church. They will intercede to God, because I know that human beings treat, but it is God who heals. So I don't see how bars will be open and then schools are closed, presuming or taking it as a means of solving the crisis. What about markets? Have markets been stopped? Why should it only be schools? So it brings to me a kind of thought. And then, to be very honest with you, an academic year takes a period of 36 weeks. And if at present we are at about 27, we still have about 9 or so. And if we leave them out, what becomes the fate of our learners and of the subject matter that would have been studied within this time left? So I don't think that ending the school at this point in time is a solution to the health crisis.
All right, so we are asking whether based on the 2 terms in evaluating the students, is it possible or is it a solution to the health crisis?
It is not a solution. I have said it. It is not a solution because other areas have been given the freedom to work. And these same areas are even much more dangerous for the contraction of the COVID-19 rather than schools.
Thank you very much for your viewpoint, Mr. Kamanga Venashus. You rather think that it is a possible solution to the health crisis that we are facing currently?
Yes, Vanessa, you know, in every developed society, which I presume ours is one, we always look at measures that could preserve the future generation. We are talking of children. And when you look at when this crisis began, I mean, in our context, in Cameroonian context, schools were suspended from the 18th of March, I think, so around that period. Yeah, the 18th of March. And we had just about 2 weeks to go on Easter vacation. Yes, and after the Easter vacation, schools were supposed to resume around the 13th of April, which means we had gone more than 3/4 of the academic year. The academic year, like our guest says, is made up of 36 weeks. That is 9 months. Out of this 9 months, you discover that the last term that we have is practically 2 months. Which means if we take the 9 months, if we were to divide it by 3, it would mean each term should have 3 months. And only the third term has 2 months. Which means these 2 months, in a normal school environment, teachers have what they call progression sheet, progression chart, in which their workload is divided according to weeks in such a way that, you know, when it is seriously followed, it means at the end of the week you should have covered this, you should have covered this. By the end of the month you should have covered this. By the way, when we look at the academic year, by May, exam classes begins their exams because GCE practical begins in May.
Yeah, around the 20th going
yes.
upward.
And Vanessa, when in most schools after 20th May they are closing, which means we barely used just the last 2 weeks of the month of April, and we were getting into May to complete the month of May, and students would have been going normally for their third term holidays, which means the crisis did not really take much of the time. What I want to say from this analysis is part of a greater chunk of the 2019-2020 academic year was used without any worry, was used normally as it should be. A conscious teacher, a conscious school, a well-organized school that follows up the teacher would have gone past 3/4 of the work. And if we are 3/4 of the work, Vanessa, we are wearing the consequences. We are wearing the consequences of letting children go to school in order to cover up the 1/4 that is left, even less than 1/4 of the workload that is left, and the effect if we allow them to go to school. We are talking about their health in question here. So I think that if the school, if government should say that after studying the situation surrounding school reopening, and say that, okay, promote these children based on their first term, second term, that studies were conducted normally. I think it is on the fact that let us weigh which one the greater, which is the less evil in this. Yes, in this case, we are talking of let them be promoted on the fact that they have studied 3/4 of their program. We can promote them on it, because if I see a child who has 3/4 mark of the total mark that was supposed to, in a normal situation, it is promoted. I think that promotion in our society, Cameroonian context, is always based on 50%. And if we're already getting to 75%, it means a child who has 75 over 100 is not a bad student. It's a student with a good mark. So if you are promoting that child who had 75%, I think that it is not bad. If we are basing on 75% workload to promote them, because the last 25%, we were not going to use it as normal.
All
because
right.
other
Venasius,
issues.
since you're talking about the last 25%, that leads us into the second question, because we are asked whether it is possible to use the remaining academic year to catch up with the time lost.
Is it possible to use it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that is why I said I think that it is not possible in the context that when we would come back, psychologically speaking, these children know that they are coming out. We are not even out from the coronavirus pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
We are still living it, and the children will still go out. How are we going to respect the social distancing? How are we going to respect this thing of washing hands? All these things will mingle with the academic year, with the teaching. The children are already traumatized. Their minds are already upsetted. In fact, they don't have a fixed mind now to study. So rather than trying to say that we can use this period in covering up the workload that is left, Vanessa, I think that we cannot be able to use it, from my own point of view, from my own judgment, yes, to cover it up, because we could say that if coronavirus is able to shut down the whole country, shut down the whole economy, shut down churches and schools, like the guest was saying, then I think that it should also shut down part of the it should also close part of the work that was not done. That is why I think that we can give them that benefit of doubt. In some countries, France has decided that examination classes, especially because they are talking of back, back will be awarded on the fact that they study the first and second term results, which means they are not going to sit in for any exam, because
for any official
exams. They want to avoid any instance of contaminating French future citizens. So we should also look at the future of our children, because these children, they are still fragile. They would not be able to respect the barrier measures like you and I would do. So that is why they think that we should give them the priority. They should stay at home.
Madam Vanessa,
all right, Mr. Kang, your take on that. You said yes, it is possible to use the remaining academic year.
Yes, I want to think that Mr. Venasius wants to join the group of people who do not really want the best for our children. The academic calendar is not rigid. Get my point. The academic calendar is not rigid. It means, therefore, that it could be extended, given that certain inconveniences like the COVID-19 came in. When we close in June, we reopen in September, there is a period of about 2 months. Given the fact that we have been home from when schools were officially closed, we should, if in my opinion I am sampled, I will tell you that we should consider that this time we have been at home is part of the holiday already spent. And then, God being God, if the COVID-19 goes out, we use the time between July, if it ends in July, it's a presumption.
All right.
July, part of August, cover up the work, so that we should have good consciences that when schools are resuming in September, the children should have covered what they were due for the previous class, and then continue with the academic work coordinatedly. You understand? What Mr. Venasius said, from my judgment, appears to be he is much more inclined to seeing the children enjoy the summer holidays rather than completing the 1/3 of the work left. My question is, if it were a Form 3 student and 1/3 of the work that was supposed to be covered in Form 3 is not covered, are they going to complete it in Form 4 before starting the Form 4 program, or will it be forgotten forever? And if that be the case, what if they were to study something per se, osmosis, and a child has the vision of becoming a medical doctor, and maybe until that child goes beyond that has never known anything about osmosis. Don't you think that it would have a retrospective action when that child wants to pursue his or her dreams? I want to think that if the government should redress, should adjust its strategy, and we use the time for the holidays, when even to me, the holidays period, children are left free, they get indulged into activities that, there is an African adage which says, an idle mind is a devil's workshop. You understand? You soon see our youngsters getting involved in juvenile delinquency and others because of freedom. Let this time be used judiciously, and these children cover the 1/3 of their work.
Manga Venashe, you have something
yes,
to add?
I just wanted to come back on this issue. It's not like, giving the children the leeway just to play, to idle around, no. But the fact is, this is a reality that we have on the ground. It is not whether the government wants it or not. It is not whether we, the parents, wants our children to, or want our children to be, controlled or not. The situation is coronavirus is imposing its rules on us. No matter what preferences we have to give way to coronavirus, because even if when it comes to life, it takes it away. It is in a real situation, the normal situation, the reality on the ground is few schools complete their programs. Few schools, few students would leave from 3 to Form 4, the example he took, would leave from 3 to Form 4, having ironed out the program in Form 3 and start a program in Form 4. We're talking about the Anglophone subsystem of education here. The program runs from Form 3 to Form 5. It's a 3-year program. And God being God, like he cited, if we are able to get to the other side of this virus next year, and in Form 5, these Form 3 students would be able to overcome them. Vanessa, how many how many examination class students go in for exams without completing their syllabuses? Do they fail? The examination is, we are living a situation where we want to look at, let us not presume that we want to shy away from work. No, the necessity of work is seen everywhere. But then the situation on the ground, we are still using the if clause because we don't know what will happen in June. If by June the virus is still there, I don't think that, we don't know. The government will decide that let us prolong, and we can go even right up to next year. Remember that some other countries have been in this thing for more than 2-3 months, and they are not yet even talking of lifting up the lockdown.
All right.
So it is just to say that in as much as we want our children to go to school, in as much as we want our children to complete their workload, it is also necessary that we need to take precautions to preserve their life. That is the center point here, preserving their lives.
All right, maybe in another program we're going to talk more on this, but then let us focus on our debate this evening. Is there anything wrong in talking about the Anglophone crisis in classrooms? We took the case study of Boya with Mr. Agbo Baladan has been dismissed because he set a question concerning the Anglophone crisis. Mr. Akang, you said no, there is nothing wrong in that.
I will start by hailing Barrister Agbo Bala. I'll start by hailing him for bringing to limelight truths that are hidden. I want to think that the Anglophone problem in this country is not anything that is new. Even the smallest child who can talk, especially in the English-speaking zones of this country, knows that there is a problem. And an adage runs that a problem shared is a problem half solved. I want to think that the truth about the Anglophone problem should be made known. Should be made known to the nooks and crannies of this country. Because if we know the truth of the problem, then the problem is half solved. And how then are we going to exponent, make it known, without teaching it to the children, without teaching it to the learners? I am really flabbergasted over one issue. I don't know if the Agbo Balas, I don't know the question he put up, but I don't know if his own question was a question that had a taboo on it. Let me bring to you an exhibit that Agbo Bala is not the first university lecturer to pose a question to learners relating to the Anglophone problem. If our listeners, those watching us now, some of them have seen these questions, the University of Yaoundé too, in January 2020, in its receipt session for the Master's 2 students of the Faculty of Law and Political Sciences, posed its question number 2. Is the evolution of the Anglophone problem from 2016 an issue of nationalism or ethnicity discourse? If the lecturer there was not called to question, if the lecturer there was not dismissed, why should Agbo Bala be dismissed? I don't think that dismissing him is actually based on the fact that he posed a question relating to the Anglophone crisis. I want to think that there is an underlying...
There's a hidden agenda.
Yes. There is an underlying agenda which has led to the university taking that decision. And if I should follow, Agbobala did not refuse to appear before the disciplinary council. Agbobala only said he will not appear before the disciplinary council because of procedural order. The procedure which is used to convoke a lecturer to the disciplinary council was not respected in toto, and it was a breach of the law. And as a legal-minded person, he had a full right to deny appearing before the disciplinary council just on that grounds. So I don't see why his refusal should be given a dismissal.
Should be given a dismissal. Mange Venashus, you are supporting what Mr. Kangogomos. He is a legal mind practitioner talking to us right away.
Actually, that is why I got him basing on procedural, procedure, if I can use that tautology, talking about it. From the legal point of view, he has a right to talk like that. But from my own simple way of reasoning, we are talking about dismissing. And I would like to use the words of the instructor, the words of the University of Boya Vice Chancellor that is circulating on social media. I don't know how viable that is it, but they say he used the word that Abonwala is an instructor in the University of Boya and not a lecturer. If he is an instructor, it means at least he teaches in that school. Or we are not using words that he was teaching in that school. We are dismissing him for talking about the Anglophone crisis in a question, in an examination. Vanessa, if we have to weigh this on a balance, they say in our quarter that, in my village, that you shot your own foot with your own gun. I think that the Vice Chancellor himself should equally be dismissed. Because we are talking about a question that somebody set in an exam. What about the lecture that took place already in class? The message had gone through. He has taught the Anglophone crisis in class. And now he is evaluating to see whether the students understood what he taught. Instead, they should have dismissed him that he taught about the Anglophone crisis in class, not setting about questions in class. Which it is another proof to say that the University of Boya does not control lectures that are given out to students. And I go an extra mile to say that lecturers in the University of Boya, in this case, we are talking about Bongwala, Mbala, instructors in the University of Boya, they teach without using the official curriculum that the school gives out. Because if the university, if it was in their time, in their program, that they have to talk about the Anglophone crisis, which means he followed his program, taught his students, and like every other learning teaching process, they have to evaluate the teacher on what, the students on what was taught. So evaluating them on what he taught already, the problem should have been coming from the fact that he taught that, not that he evaluated that. So when I listened to it, I was asking myself, one lecturer in the University of Boya, I hold his name for security reasons, he's still alive, he said this: we Cameroonian citizens, we grow with the history of France. If I talk about Napoleon in France, you will recite it. If I talk about Henry II in Britain, you recite it. Let me just talk about the one ruler in Cameroon. You would not know, because we were not given our history in Cameroon. They did not teach us our history. They were teaching us about the French Revolution. They were teaching us about the American War of Independence. They were teaching us about things that have no bearing to us actually. But then, what concerned us, they were giving us a politically tailored history of Cameroon to suit the ambitions of those who tailored it. And that is why, when we talk about the Anglophone crisis now, some political, I don't want to say state agent, they feel a kind, because they are talking about something that is a nightmare to them. Because remember, one government minister said the Anglophone crisis does not exist.
Does not exist.
About some 5-6 months, he come back to accept that the Anglophone crisis does exist. And if it does exist, and we are teaching in a school, what type of university graduates do we want that will not understand the history of their country? So I don't see anything wrong to talk about the Anglophone crisis in our classrooms. It should even start from the nursery. Because the state at which we are now, Honorable Wiba said, even if they kill all Cameroonians, this idea of Anglophone crisis would still come up in the blood of Cameroonians, whatever will happen, Vanessa.
All right, Mr. Kang.
Yes.
I've been seeing you. You've been wanting to say something.
Because when I was in high school, when I studied history, because I studied history, I have taught history. I taught the Anglophone problem even before 2016. The Anglophone problem in Cameroon is not an issue of 2016. It is not an issue of 2016. 2016 took a different phase, but the problem had existed before now. If not, can you tell me why there was an all-Anglophone conference in the 90s?
That is it.
Was it not to address problems relating to Anglophones? Why should the question of talking about the Anglophone problem in schools become a taboo? I want to think that dismissing Agbobala and then using terminology as an instructor and not a lecturer is simply playing over words. That's what a literary practitioner refers to as metonymy. And let me tell you, it has only helped to expose and bring to limelight much more truths about the Anglophone problem. And Agbobala, being the Agbobala that I know, will not take it lying down. And these are people I am sure he must have taught following the academic program that was at his disposal.
All right, since we are with you, we are going to continue with our last question for tonight. Is there anything behind the Cameroon Renaissance movement resistance to stop distributing the anti-COVID-19 gifts? And you said, yes, there is a problem.
Yes. We shouldn't give a child a bad name just because we want to punish the child. Cameroon is a state of law, and there is order. We are talking about gifts, hand sanitizers, face masks,
test kits,
and others. I want to think that these things, like we said last week, should have passed through the hands of the Ministry of Public Health. The government, if I can recall, when MRC started its campaign to raise funds to support in the fight against the COVID-19, the government, through its Minister of Territorial Administration, referred to it as a breach of the law. The legal luminary, the head of the MRC, went ahead. That was a political viewpoint to it. Where I find a problem with their sharing of the materials.
The resistance in sharing it.
Yeah, the resistance in sharing it is the fact that they have not passed through the official procedural means. I don't think that it was the rightful place of MRC to go purchase them, except that they want to tell us that a political party has overnight become a medical department. They were supposed to get the funds to the Ministry of Public Health. And let me tell you, if the Ministry of Public Health refused or denied to collect it, the purpose of which that collection was done was to support the fight against the COVID-19. If the MRC asked me for counsel, I would have advised them to take that money into the government's treasury, giving it a name. This is the support that has been contributed by loyalists to the MRC to help fight the COVID-19 pandemic in Cameroon.
Which is of national interest.
Which is of national interest. If the money goes there, after all, the money that government is saying we have sent in 10 million, we have sent in this, is it not coming from that same public treasury? So if the money had been deposited there with that code, whether it is used for that purpose or not, the donors, the party authorities would have had a clear conscience.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Kangomo, for your viewpoint. Mangavena Shoes, you support our guest tonight's point of view.
Yes, Vanessa, we say the CRM's resistance and their insistence to distribute this gift. Vanessa, when I was listening to, I read this the story about what happened in Monatele in the Central region, where they went with the gift. After the Minister of Public Health told them that I am not in the right position to receive them, go rectify your situation with the Minister of Territorial Administration. They did not go to the Minister of Territorial Administration. I heard them in Douala here with the Archbishop to give some to the Archbishop. Yes. The problem is not CRM as a political party that is giving out gift. When you move along the street, you see even religious denominations, even individuals, they are giving them. But I think that we are in a country that things need to be orientated, things need to be organized. That is why we talk of a law. When they say don't give it, there is a simple ethical norm: obey before complaint.
Okay.
They did not obey, and once they don't obey, it seems as if there are two, there are two leaders in this country. Because if the authorities say don't do it first, and then you can complain. I think what the CRM party is doing, they are actually succeeding in gaining that unpopular that unpopularity that they had amassed over a short period that they existed. So I rather think that if they ask them, don't share it, they should have stopped. They cannot tell Cameroonians that it is with what they have that will stop the COVID-19. Because now if they say don't share it and you insist on sharing, it means there is something fishy. Vanessa, you cannot help me against my wish. If I tell you don't help me, and you insist that I must take, I then tend to suspect this is a gift. Yes, so I would rather think that the problem was not with Maurice Kamto as an individual, the problem was not with the CRM as a political party, but the problem was with the initiative they created. If the law in Cameroon says once you are creating any association, it has to be organized by the Ministry of Territorial Administration, it means the Survivor Cameroon that was created, the simple thing that the minister said was Maurice Kamto should come as an individual and give the gift like other individuals gave. Yes, if they came like them, because Dangote gave. Yes, other structures in Cameroon, they have been giving. When they are giving, they are not giving under an illegal association. They are giving with a recognized association. And when I look at from that point, I think the government is playing its role of reorganization, and how I wish this role were supposed to be played like that in other areas too, to make sure that once they say don't, it should be don't. Not don't, and then some other, civil servant or ministers, they are doing it behind no bed. It should be a regular thing. When they talk of a law is a law, whether good or not. So the CRM party was supposed to pack the gifts. They should give it out. Maybe CRM party is giving, Maurice Kamto is giving as an individual, as a politician. Any other person will receive. But once they want to give as Survivor Cameroon initiative, that initiative is illegal because the association was created without the aval, without the visa of the Ministry of Territorial Administration of Vanessa.
Thank you very much, Mange Venashus, for your point of view.
Thank you, Vanessa.
And I wish you a happy weekend.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Kangogomos, he is a legal mind practitioner. It has been a pleasure having you tonight.
Thank you so much, madam. I am happy.
We are happy too as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you enjoyed the show back at home. It has been our pleasure having you for tonight and this weekend's edition. Stay in the company of DBS Television and enjoy our programs until we meet again on Monday. Take a rendezvous and make it the best. Bye-bye.